It is bloody hot as officially summer is over, but still it pushes into the 30s each time. I always get a bit thrown off when I hear on the radio it'll be, 78, 80, 85, 95 degrees. You go, what? 95 degrees? And oh, that's right. Carry the one, minus the two. A lady who's well and truly across all of that is Miranda Devine. She's working at the New York Post, and of course you can read her stuff online. Check her out on Twitter, and you'll see her pop up every now and then here on Sky News, and she joins us now in New York City. Lovely to see you, Miranda. You wrote very, very strongly today, and rightly so, about this Brett Kavanaugh thing. I keep talking about it tonight because people need to understand the hit job that this was. A story from way back when, but the paper forgets to say that the woman doesn't remember it and she wasn't even interviewed for the book about it, yet that was enough to get people who want to be president to say this bloke should lose his job on the Supreme Court. It's a hit job in all ways, and you called that out today.
Yeah, it's so obviously a hit job, and so sad to see the New York Times has plunged to this kind of journalistic malpractice. You had them publish in the Sunday paper. They sort of buried the story, but this new allegation, supposedly, that 35 years ago at another drunken dormitory party at Yale, the then freshman Brett Kavanaugh exposed himself to a woman and then she was forced to touch his penis. Now, it's a sordid, silly kind of allegation, but deeply damaging to a Supreme Court justice. And he already went through this witch hunt last year. And then the New York Times, they've extracted that story from a book from two of their reporters. Well, in the book, the reporters actually admit that this supposed fresh allegation, the victim doesn't want to talk to them and doesn't remember the incident. So it's not an allegation. It's something that has been told to senators, whisper, by a Democratic operative, a Washington lawyer who acted for Bill Clinton in the Monica Lewinsky case. So he's not exactly an honest broker, and even he wouldn't talk to the authors. It is a non-story, and today the New York Times had to issue an apology.
Well, and I keep talking about this tonight because it matters for people at home to understand that Joe Biden put out a generic statement, this is really concerning. But Bernie Sanders, Elizabeth Warren, Kamala Harris, Cory Booker, that idiot Beto O'Rourke, Mayor Pete, basically, all but Biden, who are a chance of being the challenger against Trump, said that this bloke should lose his job based off this flim-flam garbage. What does that tell you about, the Twitter tail wagging the dog of the people who want to run the country?
And what does it tell us about their character, about their moral compass, that they would just leap onto Twitter to call for the impeachment of a Supreme Court justice that they don't like, based on a really flimsy, on its very face, story that the New York Times was so embarrassed about that they buried it on page 2 in the 11th paragraph of a story, not even in the news section, in their review section, their Sunday review book section. So there was no news pointer. They just sort of left this unexploded bomb there for other people to detonate. And sure enough, these Democratic desperate candidates who want to be presidents, they fell for it. They went and they pressed the red button. They don't care about the truth or fairness. They just are obsessed with stopping Donald Trump from appointing all these conservative judges. He's announced this morning on Twitter, I think it's 150 conservative judges to courts across the country, and that is driving the Democrats and the left absolutely mad.
Because that's the stuff. Even if he lost an election, that majority on the Supreme Court, it's there for their natural life. 150 extra judges with that common sense there for the rest of their life. That's the legacy of any particular president, and certainly with the Republican Senate being the ones who get to pick those judges, the foot is down, the accelerator is on to try and balance back the system from where the lefties have had it for a long time. I want to ask you about the ScoMo visit that's coming up. We learned today from the White House that the Prime Minister will be travelling to Ohio with the President. Anthony Pratt's going to open up a factory there worth about $2 billion, plus all the bells and whistles. But that means our Prime Minister, ScoMo, is going to be on Air Force One with Trump. I mean, it doesn't get bigger than this. This has not happened for any other world leader, and that includes Macron when he got the state visit here, and he's the only other one to get a state visit here. Trump is all in on Morrison, and Morrison particularly. Yes, Australia, but Morrison in particular, isn't he?
He really is. Remember when he was so delighted and tweeted his congratulations to Scott Morrison on his win, and he sees him as an ally, as a fellow traveller. And look, behind the scenes, Morrison has done a terrific job of schmoozing with President Trump, and that's really important for our country and, you know, for our alliances with the US, particularly at a time when Donald Trump is pursuing a more isolationist policy with America. It's really good for Australia, and you can't underestimate the importance of this visit, and particularly, as you say, that visit to Ohio, which is happening next Sunday, our time, where the Prime Minister and President Trump are going to go to this tiny little town, I think population 10,000 in Ohio, and where Anthony Pratt, as he promised he would do last year, has built a cardboard factory on the banks of a river there. And, you know, he's employing a whole lot of people. And Donald Trump is delighted by that, because what he's saying is that proves that his policies are attracting companies and manufacturing businesses to come to America and give Americans jobs. And from Australia's point of view, it's, you know, Anthony Pratt is a great Australian who is making it big in America. And so, you know, that profit will come back to Australia as well.
Yeah, my oath. Now, if you don't mind, I'm going to ask you this domestic question, because the breaking news tonight is that there's going to be a challenge against Gladys Berejiklian. Now, I can't see how this is going to result in her losing her premiership so early after winning that election. That said, if you want to start looking at numbers, vast majority of Liberal MPs in the lower house, forget the Nats, Liberal MPs, because they're the ones who'll pick the leader, they voted against these changes to the abortion rules. Tanya Davies, 3 others, 4 MPs say they're going to quit the party if there's not changes. Changes are not going to happen. But tomorrow is when they're going to try to get a change of leader. At this stage, empty seat. Lots of ministers that are out there saying, I support, I support, I support. What do you think of this? This is wild.
Well, it's a real disaster, and for Gladys Berejiklian to allow this to happen shows such premature hubris, arrogance, and a level of deviousness that I didn't know that she had in her. And also incompetence and bungling and lack of respect for her own colleagues and for, you know, the Conservative voters who voted her in. It's a real betrayal, and it just adds to that feeling in the populace that you can't trust even Conservative governments, you know, like the Liberal government. And she's not a Conservative. She's made that clear. But she ambushed her colleagues. There was a better way of doing this. She should have done it in good faith. But she and the cabal of, you know, Labor, the Greens and Alex Greenwich got together. This is very undemocratic that she's having these secret meetings across the aisle to push through progressive policies that her own party didn't vote for. You know, 2/3 of them didn't vote for. So it's a really perilous time for her. Look, I'm not for. I was against the rolling of Tony Abbott and the rolling of Malcolm Turnbull. I'm not for the rolling of a democratically elected leader, you know, while they're in government. So but on the other hand, she has behaved appallingly. And the fact is she only has a couple of, majority seats. And these 4 rebel MPs threaten her majority. So this is an existential crisis. They've so far said all they're going to do is spill the leadership. The Cabinet, Dom Perrottet, the most important person in the Cabinet, the Treasurer, has said that he's rock solid behind Gladys Berejiklian. But we've heard that before, haven't we?
Yeah, I think we've seen this dance way too many times in Australian politics. Miranda, thank you so much.
Yeah.
Can't wait to see you in Washington in a few days' time. It was lovely to catch up in New York. All the best to you, mate.